Welcome, everybody, to the Cover 2 podcast on a, gloomy Wednesday morning. Most of these Wednesdays now, for some reason, are a little bit gloomy outside.
Yeah, I mean, last Wednesday was Halloween, so I can understand that, but I was expecting to wake up to some sunny skies.
Yeah, this is
and we have not gotten that
No,
so
it is
far.
November, so this is, weather is supposed to do this, but nonetheless, we haven't had a nice day. It's always nice when we get out of the podcast, but... when we're coming into record, we're like, man, it's like...
Speaking of November, you got a nice little beard going on there.
Oh, this thing's getting shaved off tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
No shave November for you?
No, girlfriend doesn't like it.
I see. Okay.
No, so,
man,
yeah,
already.
So,
how long have you guys been dating?
Already, about 6 months.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's not that bad. I know.
Just making sure.
We don't need to start getting on that.
Just making sure, man.
But
I want to get a little personal with you.
I got you. That's all fair. I'm ready to answer most questions. But nonetheless, we do have a podcast to do. So let's get into the sports realm of things. Great start. Great start of the podcast.
Yeah. Nick, by the way, I just wanted to mention he is wearing his Boston University shirt where his girlfriend
that's what my girlfriend
currently attends, and Nick is actually going to Boston tomorrow. So I'm glad that you did not leave today, so we were able to do the podcast.
Yep. No, it's a good thing. It's gonna be interesting because it's my first time in Boston since the Dodgers beat.
Right, I was gonna say if you would have went last week, then you could have potentially gone to the not the rally, but the celebration.
The parade. I would have got hit by a beer at one of those parades. So.
Probably.
We'll see. We'll see.
Are you gonna bring any Dodgers?
Absolutely
gear?
not.
No. Okay.
There's a lot of the people that she knows are big Red Sox fans.
Okay.
Big Patriots fans, big Celtics fans too.
Just everything Boston.
It's just it's exactly the opposite of what we like.
Okay. So you should just stay neutral. Wear that Boston University shirt.
White t-shirts. Black t-shirts.
Yeah.
Just normal stuff that like.
Stay neutral.
Right. These pants I'm wearing right now.
Don't get any fights, okay? I don't want you to
No.
come back
I don't want to get any fights.
Anything like
No.
that.
I will lose every fight I'm in. But nonetheless, enough about me.
Let's get into it.
It's just gonna be mostly a football podcast today. We're gonna do a little bit of cover 5 at the end, where we'll have a hockey question to ask. We have a little NBA storyline, and we also have more and more football and stuff like that. Also, interesting development with Bryce Harper. We're gonna talk about a little bit later in the show. But Jared, I want to start with the most recent football news. And that is the Dallas Cowboys. As you guys might know, the Dallas Cowboys were on Monday Night Football. Had a lead at one point in that game, but unfortunately lost to the Tennessee Titans. And Jared texted me last night, hey, I have a couple things to say about the Dallas Cowboys. So, Jared, what is the state of the 3-5 Dallas Cowboys?
Whew. Yeah, talking about a fight, the Cowboys did not put up much of a fight in that game. In the first half, and more so in the first quarter, it really looked like the Cowboys had control. They had forced 2 fumbles. They were able to get Amari Cooper, who they just traded for, his first touchdown in a Cowboys uniform. So coming out of that first quarter, it was like, all right, this team looks good. I think we understand that the Cowboys defense is good. I'm not putting them in an elite status, but they are good. They have a very good front, and their defense will keep them in games. And offensively, Dak Prescott was able to move the ball and find Amari Cooper, which was probably one of the biggest questions going into that game was, okay, the Cowboys spent a first-round pick on this guy. How is he going to be utilized? He gets a touchdown early. Okay, let's go, right? I think one of the key turning points in that game was in the second quarter, the Cowboys allegedly had forced another fumble, which would have been the third fumble by the Titans of the game. Well, the referees went back to review it, and they said that the receiver had not maintained the ball and made a football move before the ball was fumbled. This isn't even me being biased. I think that was very, very questionable. They called it a fumble on the field. And so the fact that they reversed it was a little shocking to me. The Cowboys would have had the ball in Titans territory and would have had an opportunity to go up by double digits. So I'm not saying that the Cowboys would have won the game there, but I think that was a big turning point because the Titans went down and scored a touchdown on that drive when they were able to keep the ball. And so basically, everyone right now is up in arms with Dak Prescott and saying that this offense isn't clicking. In reality, this is not really Dak Prescott's problem. This is the offensive play calling. And I don't care if you want to say Scott Linehan, who's the offensive coordinator, or if you want to say Jason Garrett. To me, they are two of the same. I really don't care. At this point, they both need to go. There needs to be a new offensive system. And I mean, Nick, did you get to watch the game on Monday?
I watched the whole game. Yeah.
Okay. In my opinion, and this is as a Cowboys fan, and I want to get your opinion as a non-Cowboys fan as well. I don't see much creativity in this offense, right? I look at the Carolina Panthers and the way that they use Christian McCaffrey. I look at the New Orleans Saints, the way that they use Alvin Kamara. I look at the New England Patriots, the way that they use James White and how they use Julian Edelman to throw passes and all these little things. And I'm not saying that the Cowboys need to become trick happy, but like put some versatility in your lineup. You know what I mean? Put Cole Beasley in the backfield. Put Amari Cooper in the slot. Don't just run the ball with Zeke Elliott on first down like always. I mean, it's literally a given. You can bet. I'm going to go to Vegas right now and put $100 that every single possession the Cowboys are going to run the ball on first down with Zeke, because that's just what they do. For some reason, Scott Linehan is so enamored with running the ball on first down that, listen, Zeke is great, and if he gets 4 to 5 yards on first down, now you put yourself in second and manageable. But when you only get 1 or 2 yards on first down, and then you're putting yourself in second and 8, second and 9, you're already putting yourself back. And for defenses that know what the offense is going to do, I think that's where the issue is. Defense is going into this saying, we know what they're going to do. They're going to run the ball with Zeke. And then every once in a while, they're going to do a play action. There's just not enough creativity.
Well, I think the creativity will increase with the addition of Amari Cooper. He obviously wasn't able to play the entire game, just not knowing the system and stuff like that. And what was funny is one of the reasons I paid attention to this game is because my brother he had a big fantasy football matchup, and he had Marcus Mariota, and he was playing against Ezekiel Elliott and Amari Cooper. So what I remember is, it's interesting you say this, you said there wasn't much creativity with the offense. I thought there actually was more creativity in the first half. I remember, because my brother, like I was saying, was playing against Zeke in fantasy football. There was a couple screen passes where Zeke would get out in open territory, and it was like, oh man, and he's going to get 10 to 15 yards in this play. And I remember there was a play earlier in the game where he ran like 40 yards down the field and almost scored a touchdown. The problem was with the Cowboys, and I have no idea why you do this and why the Titans defense for some reason changed your whole game plan. I think was it only 6 touches for Zeke in the second half?
I'm not sure the exact number. I'll have to look it up, but it was very, very minimal.
It was horrible. It was something like, you know what it reminded me of, Jared? You'll probably remember this too. Do you remember when Zeke Elliott called out Urban Meyer at Ohio State and said, I need more touches?
Oh, yeah.
I need more.
Oh, yeah.
That's what Zeke needs to come out and do again. He needs to be like, I get your thing that you don't want to be
like one-dimensional.
One-dimensional, yeah, exactly. Perfect word. You don't want to be one-dimensional and show the same play. I mean, I know this as a Cardinals fan this year. Cardinals were very one-dimensional. Runs on first down, runs on second. It was ridiculous. And now new offensive play callers, so it's a little different. And they've only played one game, so we haven't really been able to see anything. But I kind of relate on that thing. But Zeke is their best player on offense, and I think he needs to get the ball the most on offense. But you're right. You need not to be one-dimensional, but you still need to give him the ball. And I think giving up on Ezekiel Elliott, when it's been kind of proven that Dak Prescott, with these not so good receivers, has not been perfect this year, why you'd go to that strategy later in the game when you're down and you're losing and you're in a dogfight? You need to use your best player. And that's what the Cardinals weren't doing with David Johnson, and David Johnson was sitting out on big third downs, and it didn't make a lot of sense. And kind of the same thing's happening with the Cowboys. So you're right, it's a coaching thing, it's a play calling thing. It's not really the players in the field. For some reason, they didn't add enough wide receiver depth. Now they finally do. Amari Cooper will be a bigger part of the offense now. But for this game, you knew he wasn't going to be a giant part of the offense because he's a brand new player. He's not going to throw the guy out there on 60 plays, and throw to him 40 times. It's not going to happen. So he got his touchdown. Zeke, unfortunately, not Zeke. Dak threw that terrible interception in the end zone earlier in the game.
Double coverage. I mean, come on, man.
It was almost like it was just like a set play. They said, just throw to him no matter what. And that's what he did. He just threw to the guy and just intercepted so easily by the defender. But, yeah, I do think this is a play calling issue with the Cowboys. And it brings up this question. I'm going to ask you, Jared. Do the Cowboys need to get rid of Jason Garrett?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
And I think My thing with coaching has always been coaches need at least 3 years once they get hired to bring in their own players, bring in their own talent, let their system kind of marinate within the organization. Jason Garrett's been the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys going on his 8th year, I believe. So that's been more than enough time for him to get this team right. And basically, the Cowboys have been hovering around mediocre throughout Jason Garrett's entire tenure. Now, I'm not putting all the blame on Jason Garrett because he's not the one out there physically playing, but as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, you are going to get a lot of the blame when you lose, probably more than you should.
Yeah.
And when the team wins, you will probably get more credit than you deserve. That's just the nature of the business and the nature of being the Dallas Cowboys head coach. But yes, it is time for Jason Garrett to go. The only problem is there's two things right now. The Cowboys are sitting at 3-5, but they still somehow have a chance to win the division because the Redskins lost and because the Eagles are sitting at 4-4. So the thing is, if the Cowboys do let Jason Garrett go, who's going to take over as the intern? And is that really the best thing right now for this group to fire your coach and say, okay, we're going to go in a different direction, even though we still have an opportunity to win? If the Cowboys were in the New York Giants position where they were 1-7 or whatever their horrible record is, then yes, I say you fire Garrett right now and you just try to get through the rest of the season without any injuries. But at this point, because they're still hanging on by a thread, I as tough as this for me to say, I don't know, and I don't think that that Jerry Jones will fire Jason Garrett right now because of the potential threat that the Cowboys are still in.
So how many games do you give him? You say one more loss, 2 more losses? Because if they're 3-7, it's over.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I think until the Cowboys are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, or until it's basically writing on the wall that they will not make the playoffs, until that point, I don't think Jerry Jones will fire Jason Garrett. Jerry Jones has already come out in a previous interview and said that he does not like change. He is not one for major change. He likes consistency, and he likes knowing who his guys are, which, hey, I'm all for consistency, and I'm all for that when your team is winning. The Cowboys have not been able to show that. And so, but like I said, as long as the Cowboys are still, quote-unquote, in the hunt, I believe Jason Garrett will stick around. If the if the Cowboys do fall out of contention, then I think you will start to see an overhaul and a new coach in for next season.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens in that NFC East. Obviously, Giants are out of it. Redskins disappointed. I remember I tweeted you or texted you, something like that. I was like, Redskins are just always average. You know, because I put a bet on them this weekend, and they just blew it completely. So, you know, a little bias in there, too. It will be interesting, though, the one team is the Eagles, because obviously they had Golden Tate. We haven't seen this version of the Eagles ever, to be honest, with Golden Tate. So I still think the Eagles are the top team in the NFC East. I thought the Cowboys had a chance, but this was a big loss. And remember, we did our little predictions last week, and I said, hey, the 6th seed is more than likely going to be the Redskins or the Cowboys. Both those teams dented that prediction's potential right there, because, you know, both teams disappointed for some reason, and they both have enough talent. And whether it's a coaching issue or it's whatever, both those teams need to kind of figure out what's going on. Because the Eagles are going to figure out, and they figured it out last year, and they won the Super Bowl, and they have the same coaching, so they'll probably be able to figure it out again. So, should be interesting. All right, we need to move on. Got 2 big games to talk about this week. We'll kind of go backwards chronologically here and go to Sunday Night Football, the battle of the best in the world, the quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady, a matchup build all week. You know, you had Michael Jordan doing promos for this game. I thought this game disappointed a little bit, and I thought that once again it shows that Aaron Rodgers needs help, and that we're talking about coaching changes. Mike McCarthy, potentially, we've been saying, I think I was saying he was on the hot seat at the beginning of the season, that they need to make the playoffs and really go far for Mike McCarthy to keep his job. They keep getting injured. Aaron Rodgers can't do it all for this team, and it shows. And I feel bad for Aaron Rodgers, because this team is, 3-4-1? or something like that this year.
3, 4, and 1 tie.
Yeah, and they had that bad loss to the Rams, which they could have won. They probably would have won if it weren't for Ty Montgomery's not on that team anymore. And then this week they go into the game and they all these guys are getting hurt and they just trade away HaHa Clinton-Dix. I mean, what do you think Green Bay needs to do? Because they just signed Aaron Rodgers to a giant contract, and now it's just looking like this guy's just a wasted player on this team.
That wasted player. That's a strong adjective.
It's what's happening though. There's nobody to help. I mean, they have receivers and stuff like that, but I know the offensive line is god awful. The defense is not very good.
There it is.
They're making I know, but the offensive line isn't helping either. So it's just, I don't know. I feel bad because I like Aaron Rodgers. I like watching him play. I like, I will always remember the playoff game he played against us throwing the Hail Mary and stuff like that. But it's like, you want to see that guy in the playoffs. It's like seeing Mike Trout in the playoffs, right, in baseball. You want to see the best quarterback in the league in the playoffs. And he's probably not going to make the playoffs this year now. So, I don't know. I just kind of get mad a little bit when I watch the Packers play and just like Rodgers is doing all this stuff, making amazing throws, and they lose every game. So I don't know. What do you think they need to do?
Defense, and more defense. Aaron Rodgers, you have invested so much in him, and you're right. The offensive line has had some injuries, so they're not playing as well as we know that Green Bay Packers offensive line to play. The receivers, I think they're fine at the receiver position. They have a lot of young receivers. I'll say that Randall Cobb and Devontae Adams are the 2 veterans on that team.
Devontae Adams isn't that old though.
No, he's not.
Yeah,
I just mean on that team, they're both the veterans on that team. You have Jimmy Graham at the tight end spot, but they do have some young receivers coming up. To me, the problem with this team is its defense and the fact that I cannot trust this defense. Nor do I think many people can trust this defense to get stops when it counts most. Now, I'm not saying that this defense is going to be, needs to be elite and shut teams out and give up less than 10 points a game or something like that. But I think for Aaron Rodgers, you're saying, okay, I know that we can go out and score points. We can score over 20 points a game. We can score 25, close to 30 points a game. Defensively, I don't really know if this Green Bay Packers team can stop many teams. And that's from all levels, the defensive line, the linebackers, and the secondary. I don't think they're on the right page. I mean, you think about it, they have invested so much in their secondary. I believe 3 out of the last 4 years, the Packers have drafted a cornerback or a safety in the first round, and their defense still gets torched week after week after week. I mean, Clay Matthews, have we even mentioned Clay Matthews' name at all this year?
The only times were when he hit those quarterbacks.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, for how great of a player Clay Matthews is or was, he's not that elite defensive player that can kind of lead that team anymore. And so I think the defense is a mess, and I think that's the main reason why this offense is struggling, because the defense is continuing to give up points and give up long drives. So if Aaron Rodgers and the Packers go 3 and out, or if they don't score points, it's almost like, well, we're about to give up at least 3 or 7 again because the Packers defense is just bad. So I am actually going to flip the script a little bit and say that it's not necessarily this offense and or Mike McCarthy. I think it's the defense that needs to be fixed. So whether Mike McCarthy goes because of that, listen, he's the head coach. So at the end of the day, he's the one that's going to get the brunt of the the axe, right? He's the man that takes the hit.
Absolutely.
But I think it's the defensive coordinator or something like that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, interesting. It's frustrating watching the Packers. And then you look at the Patriots; they're 7-2, doing the same thing. Josh Gordon finally had kind of a game for them. That's scary. Although Rob Gronkowski was out, and so Gordon was a bigger part of the offense was that, but. Nonetheless, Patriots look like the Patriots again, so we're not going to really talk about them as much. We kind of expect them to be deep in the playoffs, stuff like that. But for the Packers, disappointing for sure. All right, let's move on to the best game of the week, though. And this was the Saints and the Rams. And I heard someone say this the other day. This game ended up looking like a Super Bowl matchup. And the way it played out, it was fun to watch. I watched it through and through. I had Red Zone on, so I was watching a couple other games at the same time. But this game was, it was loud in the Superdome. The fans knew what this game was. It was the 2 best teams in the NFL. And the Saints pulled it off and beat the undefeated Rams. There's no undefeated teams in the NFL anymore this year. And I was extremely impressed by the New Orleans Saints, and I think, I think the Saints are now the team to beat in the NFC. Well, could you agree with me on that one?
Ooh, that is so tough to say.
Who do you think's better though then?
Oh man. As of this week, the Saints.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're literally talking about right now in the moment, Wednesday, November 7th at 9:22 a.m.
Yes.
Then yes, I have to give it to the Saints, but I'm not writing off the Rams. I'm just not going to do that. The Rams...
I'm not writing off the Rams either.
No,
I'm just saying
what the
that,
Rams showed in this game by being able to come back down 35-17 shows me that this team has heart, has will. They understand they're good, and they're not going to just blow teams out in every game, and that they can make a comeback. So the fact that they were able to do that, I have to give the Rams a lot of credit. I think I have to give the most credit to this Saints defense, right? And everyone always talks about Drew Brees and Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara and this high explosive Saints offense. Now, yes, the Saints defense gave up 35 points, which you don't want to do, right? And every week, but the fact that they were able to intercept Jared Goff, they were able to kind of throw the Rams offense off a little bit, at least in the first half. And listen, it was in New Orleans, so that home crowd had a lot to do with it. But I think you have to give a lot of credit to the Saints defense for keeping the Rams offense in check just enough. Because I think that the Saints went into this game saying, listen, we know we can score points. We just need the defense to come up with a couple stops, right? Give us a couple opportunities.
And they did that.
And that's exactly what they did.
No, the Rams are a fantastic team. But they were exposed a tiny bit in this game. And like I said, I'm not saying the Saints are a perfect team. They have a great offense, one of the best offenses in the league. And the defense is okay. I mean, Eli Apple looked terrible for them. I was saying it on Twitter. I'm like, dude, this guy can't cover anybody. It's the only reason the Rams are staying in the game because, hey, crossing route across the middle and have Eli Apple on coverage, and they have no chance because these receivers are just running all over the place. But the Rams, Marcus Peters played terrible in this game. Could not cover Michael Thomas if his life depended on it. And some of the other secondary players, obviously they're missing Aqib Talib for a while. He's on IR. A couple of their other secondary players didn't play well either, and it kind of exposed a little, probably the weakness of this Rams defense that we thought was unbelievable, really good, star-studded. And Peters came out and admitted it in the postgame. He said, I just didn't play good, and I haven't played good for the last couple weeks, so I need to step it up. And yes, he does need to step it up because they made a big trade for him. He's the only corner there right now that's a number one corner. You had Aqib Talib. Now he's not there. So he needs to step up. LaMarcus Joyner didn't play very well. John Johnson III didn't play very well. So it was, they got exposed a little bit. And these teams that can throw over the top are going to be able to score some points against the Rams. They might not be able to beat them. That's why Atlanta beat them last year too as well in that playoff game. And I just think the Rams need to shore that up. They need to play a little better on defense. And this game also showed, Jared Goff is still young. Right, he's going to make mistakes. That interception he threw was terrible. Threw right at a linebacker.
Ooh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? It was just so, and he did that in the playoff game too. He didn't play as well. This is the difference between Drew Brees and Jared Goff. These are similar teams, similar offenses, and Jared Goff made some mistakes in the biggest part. He also made some great plays, but he also did make some mistakes in the biggest part of the game. And that just shows the youngness of some of these Rams players and why a team like the Saints might be able to keep beating them and beat them in the playoffs potentially too. But the Rams, I'm not counting them out. There's like three teams in the NFC, the Panthers, Saints, and Rams. And any of those teams I think can win the Super Bowl right now. So, we'll see. But, the Saints impressed me though, for sure.
Two things that I want to mention or talk about from your points. One, you make a good point about the Rams secondary, and you're right. They need to keep Talib back in the biggest way.
But he's on IR, so it's going to take a while for him to come back.
I think he is able to come back in a few weeks.
Okay.
So Marcus Peters just needs to bear down and hold things down.
They got the Chiefs in 2 weeks. Though.
Right. That is a huge matchup that I will be definitely watching. But no, you're right. Marcus Peters simply needs to play better. He needs to stop biting on plays and trying to make a huge play, and he just needs to play his normal game, right? He needs to understand that, listen, without your second best corner, you are now basically the only guy. So you're going to be matched up against the other team's best receiver every single week, and we need you to play your game and lock him down and not try to do more than what you do your job, as
Yeah.
Bill Belichick always says. Just do your job. Your defensive front is ridiculously nasty. Your linebackers are okay, but let your defensive front get to the quarterback, and you just do your job. I think that's a good point about the Rams secondary. Where I 1,000% disagree with you is Jared Goff's interception. The linebacker Alex Alonso, who is I believe a rookie for the Saints, he comes in on nickel packages from Manti Te'o. Manti Te'o is a good first and second down linebacker during the run, but he can't cover with a damn. So they bring in Alex Alonso, who is a very athletic linebacker, and he basically fooled Jared Goff. He was running to his left, and Jared Goff saw that, so Jared Goff thought there was going to be a window in the middle. Alex Alonso was so athletic that he turned his hips around and extended all the way out and caught the ball like with basically his fingertips and caught an interception. So to me, that was not really on Jared Goff. I think that was more on that Saints linebacker making a fantastic play, because there's a handful of linebackers, only a handful that could make that play. So that to me is like, yes, of course you never want to give up turnovers, obviously, but I really don't put that on Jared Goff. It's not like he just threw it into double coverage like Dak Prescott or something like that, and turned the ball over because he's just being dumb. I think he just got outplayed in that certain situation. So from that standpoint, I have to not, he's going to get the interception, he's going to get tallied for it, but to me that wasn't really Jared Goff's fault.
Fair point. I want to say one more thing, but we got to get a break pretty soon. What also impressed me was the Saints' defensive line, their front seven. They kind of stopped Todd Gurley. Like they didn't stop him, but there was a lot of times where Gurley would hit that hole real hard and he'd just stop, go right to the ground. And I thought, can you give me Gurley's stats real quick if you still have that? Oh, you don't have the game up anymore, but
no, it's okay.
Yeah, no, that was another thing that impressed me too. The Saints front seven, kind of were able to temper Todd Gurley a little bit in this game. What were his stats?
He had 13 rushing attempts for 68 yards and
That's
one
what I'm saying.
touchdown.
Exactly.
So that's mediocre, but for Todd Gurley, those aren't his normal stats.
No, yeah, exactly.
And then he caught 6 passes for a mere 11 yards.
Yeah, so they kind of stopped Todd Gurley, and Todd Gurley is, he's the guy in that offense, because when he's rolling, it's a lot like Ezekiel Elliott. It's hard to stop them because with their receiver talent, they can just throw it all over the field. So I was impressed by that with the Saints. The Saints had a good game plan. They're gonna they have some big matchups against the Panthers later this season. They're going to be more than likely for a bye in the playoffs. Those matchups. So that's kind of I'll see how they play against them. But right now, I think the Saints are the team to beat right now in the NFL. And the Rams are good. They're still a little bit young in some areas. Marcus Peters at corner, Jared Goff at quarterback. And so I'm not set to say that they are the Super Bowl team anymore. I kind of wanted to see this game in the Saints. I thought the Saints were going to win, but I didn't think they would dominate like they did in the first half. They were up 35-14. The Rams came back because the Saints started to play a little bit of zone defense and stuff like that, and it was impressive their comeback. But you get a feeling the whole time, Drew Brees had this in his hands, and they were eventually going to win the game. So I liked that. I appreciated that from the Saints, and as a fan of the NFC West, it's not always bad seeing the Rams go down and not be the 16-0 team.
There's the real truth.
Yeah, well, there's a little bias in it too, but nonetheless. I like Drew Brees. I like the Saints, and I think they're the team to beat. Not necessarily in the NFL. We're always going to stick with the Patriots on that one, but for the NFC, for sure, it's going to be fun watching the Saints and see these other teams they play, for sure. But, we need a good break. Come back. We're going to talk a little more football, but we're going to change it to college football. Top 25 is out. We'll talk about Alabama and LSU and what that game means for the rest of the college football landscape, as well as Clemson's dominant win against Louisville. We'll be right back on the Cover 2 podcast and OC Rock Radio.
Damian Harris, straight ahead touchdown, Alabama. From a yard out. And he's basically saying, that's it, guys. Bye-bye. You're going to be 7-2, and we're going to be 9-0.
Dabo Swinney and his Tigers improved to 9-0 with a 77-16 convincing, complete, comprehensive, wall-to-wall, goal-line-to-goal-line win against Louisville.
If you look at the teams in the top 4 right now, and you look at the games that potentially make you kind of ponder, you would say Michigan going to Columbus against Ohio State. and you would say Alabama going to Atlanta to play Georgia.
Cover 2 podcast back on OC Rock Radio for our second segment of the show, continuing our football talk, but switching from the NFL to college, where there were some big-time matchups this past weekend, plus the new college football rankings came out last night. But we first want to start with Alabama and LSU. Alabama blanking.
What was the score?
LSU. That would be 29 to 0.
What I'm talking about.
In Death Valley at night. LSU was fired up. I mean, Odell Beckham was there. All the great LSU players of the past came out, and Alabama just basically said, "We don't care. We're going to dominate," and that is exactly what they did. Nick, I know you watched at least some of the game.
Yes.
Give me your thoughts.
I mean, just Alabama is so dang good. You thought this was this is their only test. Right? Until probably Georgia in the SEC championship game. Because Auburn's good and Auburn's ranked 25th. But Alabama is playing Mississippi State this week. I think they're favored by over 20 in a game against the number 18 team in the nation. So, this was their only test pretty much this year. And they won 29-0 on the road against the number 3 team in the nation. There's not even much to say. They're incredible on offense. They're dominant on defense. LSU, they're a good team. I think they have some problems on offense, and we were just talking about this in the break. They're probably not going to make the college football playoff now. If they do, it kind of seems pretty, that seems pretty biased if they get in, but nonetheless, there's a lot of other teams in front of them that are better, even behind them that are better than them. But we'll get into that in a second. But Alabama, Tua, I don't know how to say his last name, so I'm going to just say his first name. Tua is just, he's amazing. He hasn't thrown an interception this year, correct?
He threw one.
He threw one in the game. Okay, see, I was able to see some of this game. I kind of had to watch from afar, but so he finally did throw an interception. Okay, finally threw an interception. What, the 9th game of the year? This was
the first game that he played in the fourth quarter, the entire season.
No, there's no way.
The first time this season that Tua has played in the fourth quarter.
That is
amazing.
Ridiculous.
Amazing.
Just adding to the legend of this team. No, this is the most dominant team I've seen since the USC teams of the early 2000s. And it's going to take a really good team, and there is another team, and we'll jump into them. It's going to take a really good team to beat this team. I think there's no way Alabama doesn't at least get to the championship. Anything can happen. We've seen the Patriots go 16-0 and get to the Super Bowl and lose. We've seen other teams get there that were dominant, that end up losing. So in a championship game, usually anything goes. But I don't see this team losing until potentially the national championship. And I think they're as dominant as hell. I think you can put them as that number 1 spot in the college football playoff every single week and just bet it every single week, and you'll probably get it because they're going to be number 1 up until the national championship game, and more than likely they'll probably win the national championship. But we have to talk about other teams and stuff like that. But
no, we don't.
Why?
For what? I'm not trying to make this podcast boring, but it's I think Alabama proved in this game that they are. They might as well be like a semi-pro team. I'm serious. They could probably go up against the Cleveland Browns or one of the worst teams in the league right now and probably contend. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. This team is so far above everyone else.
No, I got it. Put them against the Raiders. Put them against the Raiders this year with that roster.
They would have a chance. You know what the scary thing is about this Alabama team? And it's every single year. This isn't breaking news or anything. It's just kind of mind-boggling. Their second and third stringers are 5-star guys that are so good that they're playing on special teams, right? So we understand how good offensively this team is with Tua at the helm at quarterback, and we understand how good this defense is, obviously led by Nick Saban. But I think what sometimes we forget about is the third component of football, which is special teams. Yeah. And the fact that these 5-star athletes who have probably never played special teams in their entire career are now having to play special teams because they have to basically wait their turn in line.
Just so it's like the hell out of people.
No, so it's this every single unit, offensively, defensively, and special teams, which I think people sometimes forget to mention, they are all in sync and they play so well that this game, like you mentioned against LSU, was LSU's opportunity to not only prove that they deserve in the college football rankings, but to prove that Alabama, isn't bulletproof. And guess what? They did not do that.
No.
And so
they made it look better.
They
LSU didn't do their job in this game. they did nothing. They failed on every realm you possibly could fail on. I've seen all these videos. I commented on this too on Twitter. I see all these videos of Odell dance on the sideline. I'm like, y'all lost 29-0.
Yeah.
At home.
That might have been before the game. I'm hoping
it was before the game, but I'm saying I don't want to see those videos. Those videos
Right.
need to be deleted from Twitter.
Right.
When your team gets blown out by 29 at home from the number one team, when this was supposed to be your big game, Coach O walking through the thing, everybody's cheering him. Yeah, Coach O. Yeah, Coach O is just like every other coach that faces Alabama. They get smacked, and it's not close. But I have to disagree with you, Jared. There is another team we do need to talk about. Alabama's fantastic. The Clemson Tigers. Clemson Tigers, we talk about statement wins. That's a statement win, 29-0 over LSU. Clemson won 77-16 against Louisville.
Who's Louisville?
But the last time they faced Louisville, I know Lamar Jackson was there. The last time they faced Louisville, they were the underdog. And then they beat them 2 years later by 61. Like,
hold on,
I'm just saying.
Why are we talking about the past?
No, we're not talking about the
Why
past.
are we talking about it?
I'm just trying to give credit to so Clemson shouldn't be beating teams from the ACC by 61.
Yes, they should. Louisville's record is 2-7. Who are you kidding? Look, you're over here sitting talking like Louisville is like a good team. Like they should be in the top. They're not even in the top 25.
We don't have enough time to go back into their schedule.
Louisville is horrible. Yes, ever since Lamar Jackson left, this team has been I don't think anyone has talked about Louisville until now. So I guess people can thank you for now talking about it because no one has ever talked about Louisville this whole season. Yeah, 77 points is ridiculous to put up in a football game, but Clemson did what they had to do. They did what they were supposed to do. This is not surprising to me at all.
But the way they played the game was impressive, though, too.
Well, yes, but I expect Clemson to do that against almost any opponent except for Alabama. So to me, this was not a surprise, and Clemson was at home. I mean, Clemson is the only team, and I'm going to say that. Obviously, there are 4 teams that get into the college football playoff, and I'm not trying to knock Notre Dame or Michigan, who are the other 3 or 4 teams.
Yeah,
Clemson is the only other team that has an ounce of an opportunity to compete with
but
Alabama.
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying you get Clemson and Alabama in the national championship.
For the 4th year in a row?
Yeah, it's like Golden State and Cleveland. There's a chance Clemson wins. There's a chance Clemson comes out with a game plan to somehow stop 25 5-star players. It's like coming up with a game plan to try to beat Golden State, right? You can. The Golden State's not going 82-0. There's a chance some teams beat them. I know football's different. You play 16 games or whatever, but it's just there's always a chance a team goes down, and Clemson is that team. They're impressive. They have a good quarterback, a young quarterback.
Young is the key word right there.
Yeah, no, he's young.
Young.
But so is Tua.
True freshman.
Tua is a sophomore. So it's a 1-year difference. I know Tua has the experience of throwing the game-winning touchdown in the national championship. But nonetheless, Trevor Lawrence looks like he was the better choice than Kelly Bryant. Clemson really isn't going to face anybody I think they might face Syracuse, who's ranked 13th in the ACC championship potentially. But, I don't know. I agree with you. They should be killing these teams like Florida State and Louisville. But in the past, Clemson hasn't done that. And I think this Clemson team is actually potentially better than some of the Clemson teams of the past that have made it all the way to national championship. So you see Alabama. Alabama is better than they have been in the past. Clemson's better than the past. I see them getting to the national championship. Alabama especially. But let's get to the other teams that are fighting for a spot to have the chance to get in the national championship. We can talk about Clemson. We can talk about Alabama all day. Literally, because they're probably... Should we just start doing national championship prep on Clemson and Alabama early in the year?
You can put Alabama in there. No doubt. Book it right now.
But where's the national championship being played? Levi Stadium?
Yes, in San Francisco.
Yeah, so go up to San Francisco. We'll start setting up the desk. Well, ESPN's have college game day.
Get it ready.
It's going to be, just to get your Alabama sit.
Get the red and orange.
Lee Corso needs to get that big elephant head.
Yeah.
That's what you need to get ready for. But there is a ranking, and we need to talk about the other teams that are going to make it because there is somewhat of a discussion we can make. I know, Jay, I see your face, but we were talking in the break a little bit about the teams that have a chance really to even make the Final Four, and there's only about 6 or 7 that probably could make it. So if you don't know, we'll kind of list off the top 10 here, because I think anybody really below the top 10 as of now is probably out of it. Can you pull that? Yeah, pull that top 10 up. So, Jared, read off the top 10 for the listener.
Okay. Obviously, Alabama, Clemson are sitting at 1 and 2, and that will not change. Notre Dame moves up 1 spot
Undefeated?
into the number 3. Undefeated Notre Dame.
Well, LSU lost, so of course they're going to
Right. Notre Dame, I do want to mention they are an independent, so they do not get a conference championship
Big.
game.
No, I think if they go undefeated, they'll probably make the Final Four.
No,
but
they
probably will. You don't want to face Alabama. You want to be 3rd seed. You want to be the 3rd or 2nd seed.
Very true.
You want to play Clemson. So it's like Notre Dame needs to hope that there's there's a bunch of losses behind them. Or there's tough matchup.
Michigan moves up 1 spot as well. Last week they were sitting at number 5, the first team out of the playoff, and they moved in to the number 4 spot. Michigan had a dominant performance against Penn State this week. Very, very impressive. I thought that Michigan would win, but the way that they won was complete. I mean, Penn State, did they even show it? It was 42-14 or something like that. And really, the second touchdown by Penn State came late. It was basically a wash. Michigan completely dominated, and they look like a team that deserves to be in the top 4. So very, very impressive for them. Michigan is the one and only team in the top 4 that does have a loss. So
lost to Notre Dame, though.
They did lose.
Who's right in front of them, so it kind of makes sense.
And it was in the beginning of the year, so that...
I believe actually first game of the season.
Yeah, I believe it was as well.
I've always said this, too. You look at the first game of the season for college football, a lot of times, if these two teams face each other and it's a big game, a lot of times that game is almost a wash by the end of the season. It's like, yeah, they should probably be ranked ahead of them, but that loss is not counted as bad as this LSU loss, say, to Alabama.
And they only lost 24-17. It's not like they got blown out or anything like that.
No, tough game, but Notre Dame needs to be ahead of them until they potentially lose.
They do.
So let's see how all these teams win out. This is the Final Four right here. But let's keep going.
So the number 5 is Georgia. They move 1 spot up. They also have 1 loss. They're sitting at 8-1. Number 6 is Oklahoma, who also moves up 1 spot. So you have 4 teams in a row who have moved up 1 spot. They had kind of a sketchy
game this week too. They kind of almost disappointed again.
A little bit. They're also sitting at 8-1. LSU drops 4 spots to number 7, and you pointed it out that we both believe LSU is now out of the college football rankings because they lost. Washington State is sitting at number 8. They were neutral. They did not move at all. I think the committee is pretty high on Washington State. They're sitting at 8-1 as well with only 1 loss. The problem is the Pac-12 is so bad.
You know what that is? They're just trying to keep Pac-12 team.
They are. The Pac-12 is so bad that, unfortunately, in my opinion, for Washington State, their record, unfortunately, does not show much because of the weak conference that they play in. Number 9 is West Virginia, who moved up 4 spots. They are sitting at 7-1.
Big win against Texas.
They had a big win against Texas. You're right, and it was a very close win. They kicked the field goal at the end of the game.
Well, amazing pass at the near the end of the game too. A touchdown pass.
Yeah,
too.
It was. So West Virginia's at number 9, and then we have Ohio State sitting at number 10. They are neutral as well. They did not move. Ohio State is 8-1. They obviously had that horrible loss to Purdue a couple weeks ago. Nick, I think, and we were talking about this off air. Other than Georgia and Oklahoma sitting at 5 and 6, I believe that Ohio State, even though they are at number 10, they play Michigan at the end of the year, the last game of the season. I think Ohio State, now they need help, but I think they are the only team other than the top 4, along with Georgia and Oklahoma, that have a legit opportunity to still get into the college football playoff. Do you agree?
Well, see, there's a couple things. The thing with Ohio State is they severely disappointed against Purdue, but Purdue looks like they're a pretty solid team. They're not the Purdue we've seen the last couple of years where it would have been like, oh my gosh, they beat Ohio State. They came out and had another upset win this past week again. I know their record's like 5-4 or whatever, but they're like one of those Iowa type of teams. They play tough. They're going to win some big games. So I don't think that loss is actually as bad as it was, but that does look bad when the other team in your division, Michigan, who's fighting for this spot, lost to the number 3 team in a close game. So and we were talking about West Virginia, who's number 9. West Virginia and Ohio State are kind of in very similar stances here in this Final Four debate, because West Virginia, they had one loss. I forget who they lost to, but it wasn't the best loss either. West Virginia will play more than likely after this win against Texas, and barring a bad upset loss, they will play Oklahoma for the Big 12 championship game. Both those teams one-loss teams, so you could say there's an argument potentially one of those teams gets in the Final Four, the winner of that game. I think it's the same for Michigan and Ohio State. The winner of the Michigan-Ohio State game potentially is in the Final Four, but also you could see both of those teams not make it as well, because let's say Ohio State gets a big win, that might just kick the Big Ten out, or that West Virginia gets a big win against Oklahoma, that might wash the Big 12 out of it. And so it's very interesting. I think Georgia controls their own destiny, but they have to beat Alabama, which is, they're not making it in if they don't beat Alabama. If they were undefeated, this would be a completely different argument. But they had a bad loss, and now they are, they're now having to win against Alabama at the end of the season to get in, which is, as we're telling you, pretty much near impossible unless your name is Clemson. So this is going to be very interesting. I think this Final Four right here is going to end up what it is.
You think it's going to stay the same?
With Michigan being the number 3 team.
Really? So you think Notre Dame will be?
Well, because their schedule isn't as good. And I think the last 3 games are against, I know they play USC the last game of the season, because USC plays UCLA the second last game. So I know they have to.
So this week, Notre Dame is at home against Florida State.
Okay, that's a win.
Unranked. That's an easy win.
Yeah.
And then next week, Notre Dame is at home against number 13 and surprisingly ranked Syracuse.
So can you look up the ACC standings real quick? I want to just see if there's any chance Syracuse could possibly get into the Final Four. I know that would have been incredible to say even like 4 weeks ago, but if they play Clemson and then they go and play Clemson and they beat them in the ACC championship game, and they beat Notre Dame, they kind of control. So what?
Syracuse is in the Atlantic with Clemson.
Okay,
and they're currently sitting 3rd in the Boston College.
So they have 2 losses.
Second. They do have 2 losses. Clemson already beat Syracuse middle of the season.
Okay, so
they only won by 4 at home. So it was a close game for Clemson, and Syracuse showed that they can play.
But so this is what I'm saying, because Boston College is playing Clemson this week. They'll probably lose. It is in Boston though. Interesting enough. So you never know. Clemson has been kind of sketchy on the road in the past. I remember they lost to Pittsburgh one year, stuff like that. So that will be interesting, but I think they'll win that. Is there any way, in your opinion, that if Syracuse beats Notre Dame and then beats the rematch, well, no. Oh, yeah, see, they're probably not going to make it in, so never mind. It's not even going to happen.
See,
I'm just going to kill that. I'm going to kill that.
If Syracuse was in the Coastal,
you're right, yeah,
and they were able to play Clemson for the ACC championship, then I think that would help them. The fact that Clemson and Syracuse are both in the same division,
you're totally right.
That hurts. Syracuse
that does hurt them. Yeah, no. See, that's the problem there. So never mind that argument. Syracuse is not in that division, so it's tough. And see, I was talking about this to somebody. I think college football, a lot of these conferences, if you want because there is going to be a conference that doesn't make it, especially if Notre Dame doesn't get in, or if Notre Dame gets in. There is going to be potentially 2 large conferences that don't get in. More than likely, the Pac-12 and the Big 12, unless Michigan gets upset. But, you're looking at this, and these other divisions, you need to have your conference championship game be against the best 2 teams, right? Now Alabama and Georgia probably is the 2 best teams, so that probably ends up being right. But you look at what the Big 12 does; they're setting themselves up for a better chance at the Final Four than some other leagues, say the Big 10, because the Big 10, the winner of the Michigan-Ohio State game is in, and your other team in your Big 10 championship game is not even competitive. It's like Northwestern or Wisconsin or someone like that. So I think some of these divisions need to think about, or some of these conferences need to think about having a conference championship game where just the 2 best teams in your division play.
Because that's what the Big 12 does.
Well, no. Exactly. The Big 12 is giving them themselves a chance this year because they have number 9 versus number 6 playing in a game against each other, and there's no, that team is geographically in that area, so they play. The worst example of this is ACC. Because this Syracuse team, let's say they beat Notre Dame, who are the best 2 teams from the ACC? Probably Syracuse and Clemson, but Clemson will play like Duke. You know what I'm saying?
As of right now, would play Pittsburgh, who is sitting at 5-4, and or Virginia, who's 6-3.
That's stupid.
But they have a second loss in the conference, which is why Pittsburgh technically gets the lead.
Yeah, so that's dumb. You want Clemson to play the best team, and imagine in 2 weeks if Syracuse upsets Notre Dame, we're all going to be saying, well, you put Syracuse against Clemson again. They only lost by 4 the first time. There's a chance they potentially win again, and then there's this big debate of whether Syracuse gets in. Come on, it's like baseball too. I get that teams need geographical areas to play other teams because they don't want this crazy travel all over the place. But when you have the Big Ten championship game or the ACC championship game, that needs to be against the 2 best teams. And we've seen this in the SEC in the past where Auburn and Alabama are the 2 best teams and they don't play. Or LSU and Alabama are the best 2 teams, and they have to they have to just hope that LSU gets in, even though they lost some 9-6 game, right, back in the day. You had to hope that team just got in. So I don't know. I think college football needs to, not college football, but some of these conferences need to think about that too, because it will help their conferences.
I think you make a valid, very, very valid point, and I think the argument to that would be, when was the last time Syracuse was good at football? When Donovan McNabb was there?
Well, it's not even that. Yeah. No,
you know what I
literally.
mean? So it's really Syracuse has been one of the laughing stocks of the ACC Atlantic Division for years. And really, if you look at the Coastal, it's been Miami, Virginia Tech, and Virginia who have been the top dogs there. Really, Miami.
Florida State, though. Florida State's always been in the division with Clemson, and they
right.
never play each other in the ACC championship game.
Right. My argument and my point is, typically, yes, the last couple of years, it's obviously been Clemson in the Atlantic. And the Coastal, coming into this season, it was Virginia Tech and Miami who were the top 2 teams. And those were the 2 teams that were supposed to fight for that division title and potentially play Clemson. Both of those teams have been mediocre at best. Virginia Tech is 4-4 and Miami is 5-4. So really, I think I sit here and I blame those teams for not playing well enough and making this even a discussion. Because you have to give credit to Syracuse. I'm not trying to discard them in any type of way. What I'm saying is the Coastal Conference has been so bad that now your argument becomes valid.
Who is the other team Syracuse lost to this season?
Syracuse, 2 losses. Obviously Clemson, and then at Pittsburgh they lost by a touchdown.
That's a tough one.
Right.
But
only by a touchdown. They didn't get blown out.
Yeah. So that's, I'm just saying, I want to see the 2 best teams play.
I hear you. But
I don't want to see
realistically, the 2 best teams, or the 3 best teams in this entire conference should have been
I get what you're
Clemson,
saying. Yeah.
Miami, and Virginia Tech. And then Miami and Virginia Tech should be battling it out for the Coastal to play Clemson in the ACC Championship. So I'm putting the blame more on that Coastal division as opposed to Syracuse.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, it's not. I'm not really putting blame on any of these teams. I'm more putting blame on the conferences for not setting up the best possible matchups. And then they complain when one of their teams doesn't get in. The Big 12s complain, well, you didn't have a conference championship game for 5 years. So that's why you're not getting in. You're playing one less game than everybody else. Then they changed that, and now the Big 12 had a representative last year in Oklahoma. Oklahoma had a crazy game against Georgia, lost in overtime. Oklahoma probably would have had a chance to potentially go into that national championship and win against Alabama, in that game. But, back in the day, Oklahoma might not have won. Even with Baker Mayfield, they might not even been in. So, there's a lot of discussion about that stuff, but I can argue that all day because there's a lot of ammunition, but we do need to move on. Just real quick thoughts one more time, Jared, on who do you think, give me your teams again that you think still have a chance to get into the Final Four.
I think there's 7.
Okay.
Obviously, Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Michigan. Those are the current top 4 playoff seeds as of right now. Georgia and Oklahoma are respectively number 5 and 6. I believe those are the 2 next teams in line.
Real quick, though, how would Oklahoma get in? Give me your scenario. It's going to have to take a loss, right?
Right. No, Oklahoma needs help.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I should have prefaced that by saying that there are certain teams that I'm about to list.
It's like
that
Michigan
need
and Georgia
help.
control their own destiny, so Notre Dame, but Oklahoma doesn't necessarily do that.
No, Oklahoma plays against Oklahoma State this week at home, and then next week they're at home against Kansas, and in the last game of the season they're at West Virginia, who's currently number 9. So, yes, Oklahoma obviously needs to win out, and then they also need help, like a Michigan or Notre Dame losing. They need either Alabama or Georgia who are going to play each other in the SEC championship, one of those teams to lose. So they need big-time help, but I think there's still a chance for them to get in, and I think they are a talented enough team that if they got into the college football playoff, they would be competitive.
Yeah.
So the only other team who's sitting at number 10 is Ohio State, who also needs a lot of help, but the big thing in their favor is they get Michigan at home for the last game of the regular season. So that could catapult them in if they do beat Michigan, and convincingly as well.
Absolutely. All right, we need to go to break. Good college football talk right there. We're coming back with our good old game, our good old friend, Do You Care, on the other side of this break. So this is the Cover 2 podcast on OC Rock Radio.
The Chicago Blackhawks have fired coach Joel Quenneville and promoted Rockford IceHogs head coach Jeremy Colleton to take over. Coach Q led the Blackhawks to 3 Stanley Cup championships and is the second winningest coach in NHL history.
Dodgers will lose their general manager as the San Francisco Giants have agreed to a deal with Farhan Zaidi to become their president of baseball operations. Zaidi had been the Dodgers GM since November of 2014.
We'll start this afternoon with what appears to be a new landing spot for Des Bryant. Bryant worked out in New Orleans for the Saints brass, and although he left the Big Easy without a contract, the two sides have been negotiating and have come to terms on a 1-year deal. Bryant has been without a team since he was released by the Cowboys in April.
We are back here on the Cover 2 podcast. Once again, I'm Nick Nenad.
I'm Jared Smith.
And Jared, do you know what time it is right now?
What time is it, Nick?
It's time for the first November edition of Do You Care? It's a game we like to play every single week. We have fun with it. We joke around. We make fun of teams. We also have some serious discussions. But we have no serious discussions today. So get ready for us to kind of make some comments about some stuff. And Jared, guess what? We got the return of a ball.
Oh, boy.
In one of these questions.
Oh,
and Jared,
boy.
you know Jared loves when I put the Ball brothers in these questions.
Doesn't mean I have to talk about the
Yeah,
dad.
he's not necessarily getting the question today because LeVar is not in any of the questions.
Thank gosh.
First time we've mentioned LeVar in a long time. But Jared, you're going to get the first question as always. You don't know how to play the game. You don't get to play the game. We do. But nonetheless, we ask each other questions. We tell each other whether we care or not. Simple as that. Jared, do you care that Des Bryant just signed with the Saints?
I do care, and I'm very, very happy for Des Bryant. Finally, we're heading into week 10. And
Who would have thought that Des Bryant would show up before Le'Veon Bell?
Right. And oh, by the way, we need to play that game in a minute.
Yeah.
But yes, Des Bryant today, this Wednesday morning, officially signed with New Orleans Saints. He worked out with the team yesterday on Tuesday, and apparently the Saints liked what they saw from Des. And really, I think this was more about the thin receiving core that the Saints have. Obviously, they have Michael Thomas, who is their lead receiver. He's an absolute beast. They have Traquan Smith, who they drafted, I believe, in like the 3rd or 4th round of this year's draft. But really, after that, this Saints team is pretty mediocre and thin at the receiver position. So adding a talent like a Des Bryant, who can still play the game, I think is a very good solution. And guess what? It's just another weapon for Drew Brees to throw to, another big body guy that Drew Brees can throw the ball up to, and Des can go up and make plays. Now, I'm not saying Des is going to be the savior of this team and he's going to come in and score a touchdown every week, because obviously he needs to learn the system and we're not sure what type of physical shape condition that he's in. But I'm happy for him. And I'm glad that he's on a team, and the best thing is he's on a team that has an opportunity to win, something that I think Des really, really wanted. He turned down offers from Baltimore and from Cleveland, I believe, earlier in the season, because he wanted an opportunity to go to a team that was contending.
Yeah.
And the Saints are definitely contending. So good for Des Bryant. Glad that he's finally signed. Nick, do you care that the Dodgers general manager is leaving to become the Giants president of operations?
Yes, I do care, Jared, because how could you know what? I get that it's probably the dream
rival
job.
Giants, though?
That's the only problem. See, I could literally I would not care that much because the Dodgers have a lot of talent in their front office, and Farhan Zaidi isn't even the most famous name in the Dodgers front office. Andrew Friedman is, and Andrew Friedman is the president of baseball operations. Farhan Zaidi, the Dodgers' now former GM, accepted that job with the Giants. So it makes sense that he did this, but come on, man. I get he used to be with the Oakland A's and Billy Beane and all that, but dude, the Giants, I get it. We took the Giants GM back in the day, Ned Colletti, and now Ned Colletti is on the Dodgers pregame and postgame show as an analyst now. And Ned Colletti is one of the reasons the Dodgers have guys like Corey Seager and Yasiel Puig and Cody Bellinger and Clayton Kershaw. But, hey, I guess with the Giants, if you can't beat them, start taking away their front office guys. So, but yeah, no, I do care about this. The Dodgers, my only concern with this is that you're going to go into the winter meetings pretty soon, and if you don't have a GM that affects major signings and major trade potential you could do, because who are they going to be talking to? It's some interim guy who doesn't even have the full job. So I think the Dodgers really quickly and as soon as possible need to go out and try to sign a GM or get a guy from inside the organization. I bet you could get a guy for cheap inside the organization. There really is nobody else out there right now that I could think off the top of my head that is a better GM than Farhan Zaidi was for the Dodgers. But nonetheless, it sucks. Why'd you have to go to the Giants? That's literally the one team. But it's understandable because he's from Northern California and he's taking a better paying job. So I would probably do the same thing. But, maybe not with the Giants. The Dodgers, it's like going from the Yankees to Red Sox, right? It's like, hey, you don't do that. Dodgers, Giants, hey, you just don't do that. Or you're the head coach of the Giants, and then you go and you're the Cowboys head coach after that. You just don't do that. Jared, sticking with the Dodgers a little bit. Do you care that Clayton Kershaw last Friday signed an extension with the Dodgers?
I don't care. I think this was expected by many. And there were some rumors that, hey, depending on Clayton Kershaw's performance in the World Series, maybe he decides that I need a fresh start and I'm going to move on somewhere else. I mean, he has made a name for himself with the Dodgers, came up with the Dodgers organization, and it was basically only right that this team keeps him around. Really, it's only a one-year extension, and you were kind of educating me on this before during the break. Clayton Kershaw had 2 years left on his deal, and the Dodgers extended him for 1 extra year. So really, he is now on a 3-year deal. And really, I think it's a team-friendly deal because his salary goes down.
A little bit. There's enough incentives to where it could go back up to what it was.
Right. But, when you think about Clayton Kershaw and you think about the money that gets thrown around to high-level pitchers like himself, I think he might have left some money on the table, potentially, by not going and testing the market. But I think in the end, he's obviously familiar with his organization. He didn't want to uproot his family. Listen, the Dodgers are still very much contenders, going to back-to-back World Series appearances. So I think he wants to, try again to win for this organization, and he knows what it takes to get there. So this was something that I saw happening, and it did last week. I believe it was Thursday or Friday, a couple days after our podcast. We had mentioned that there was a potential of this, but it was not set in stone. So, yeah, good for Clayton Kershaw, and something that the Dodgers desperately needed. Nick, do you care? Switching to a little NHL, the Blackhawks fired their longtime coach, Joel Quenneville.
I'm still in the middle of this. Probably not. I don't really care. But it's very surprising to me because Joel Quenneville, if you didn't know, he has been the head coach for them when they've won their 3 Stanley Cups from 2010 all the way till now. So I don't know exactly which year he started with them, but nonetheless, the guy has been a legend, one of the best NHL coaches of all time. Problem is the Blackhawks just spent too much money with those Stanley Cup runs and all those playoff runs and all those conference championships and all that stuff. And they, like a team like, for example, the Seahawks or other teams, those players start to go to other teams because you can't pay them anymore. And they've just gone into a very quick rebuild after being one of the top teams in the AHL. They're now one of the lowest in the West, and it's happened to the Kings, and we'll talk about them in a second too. But this is the business of the NHL. The way the NHL works and the way the salary cap is, it's hard for teams to stay consistently on top. That's why it was so impressive. The Detroit Red Wings made the playoffs like 18 or 19 times in a row. It was impressive that the Blackhawks were getting so far in the playoffs every single year with Joel Quenneville. But you know what? It just seems like it's time for a culture change in Chicago. They still have Patrick Kane. They still have Jonathan Toews. But, and they still have Duncan Keith as well. It just seems like they just need a new voice. The old voice isn't working for a team that's rebuilding, so they're going to go with a new head coach. They haven't announced who it is yet, but nonetheless, it should be interesting to see who takes that Chicago job, because there still is a lot of talent on that team. But end of an era for sure for Blackhawks fans. But Joel Quenneville was, 3 Stanley Cups in like 6 years. Doesn't happen to a lot of teams. Jared, moving on to basketball. Do you care that Kawhi Leonard says he doesn't like the Lakers?
No, I don't care, and that may be true.
I'm surprised you don't care, actually.
No. Listen, I mean, it's interesting. Like, Kawhi Leonard is from LA. I believe he's from Pomona specifically. So for him to not necessarily like the Lakers is a little interesting because, I mean, from LA, obviously, it's Lakers all day, right? But who knows? He obviously got drafted and played for the Spurs, and we all know the rivalry that the Lakers and the Spurs have had over the last decade or two. So maybe playing with the Spurs and being under Greg Popovich probably, swung his loyalty a little bit. And it could all be a play for the Lakers to try harder to come and get him. Who knows, right? Who knows what he's actually thinking? There have been reports that Kawhi would prefer, if he did come to LA, to play for the Clippers than the Lakers. So him coming out and saying he doesn't like the Lakers may make that report true. But we're still in the early parts of this regular season. And Toronto is still going to try to re-sign him to a long-term deal, a max contract. And if they can't do that, then Kawhi will be a free agent. At the end of the day, I think this is just talk right now, and I don't think this means much of anything. If this were next offseason and Kawhi were a free agent, then I think that would mean something a little more. But right now, there's still so much basketball to go on. Who knows what's going to happen next offseason? This is just talk and noise. Nick, last question for you. Do you care? LaMelo Ball is coming back to high school to play for Ohio High School.
No, because he went to the high school in Ohio. I would definitely care if he came back to California, because my brother's in high school, and his high school basketball team is one of the better ones in Orange County. So there was the potential of them playing LaMelo Ball and being able to see him up close against people that I kind of know. Now playing with this Ohio team, I don't really care. It's more of a story because he's not playing in the JV. He's not like playing in the JBA anymore. He's not in Lithuania. He's kind of going back to be a normal kid again. And I think that's because, let's say his brother doesn't get in trouble in China, right, LiAngelo, and he stays at UCLA. And I think that kind of hurt the Ball brand, that whole thing. And then they went out to Lithuania to kind of get away from that. And so I think LaMelo almost, or LeVar, it's probably LeVar's decision, but they're kind of trying to go back to normalcy, right? LiAngelo obviously isn't going to probably be an NBA player. LaMelo still wants to be an NBA player, and the way you do that is to play high school basketball, and you go to college, and he'll go somewhere, UCLA or
the G League maybe.
Or the G League, exactly. Yeah, he probably will do that. And LaMelo Ball will be in the NBA more than likely because he's still a great player, and you're not just going to leave a great player off the court because his dad's weird. Because look, Lonzo's starting for the Lakers, so that obviously if Lonzo can do it, LaMelo can do it because there's the rumors that LaMelo is better than Lonzo. So I don't care because he's not coming back to California. Selfishly, I've never seen him play live, and I did want to see the Ball brothers, at least one of them, play live. And I never got to see that, and I probably won't get to see that now until they play in the NBA. But, so not really interesting. An interesting fact, though, there is a 7'7" player on this high school team.
7'7"?
7'7".
In high school?
Very skinny dude. If you see a picture of him, you'll know when I say skinny. You'll know what I'm talking about. But, so he's going to this school. It's just one of those prep schools or whatever. But no, I don't really care that he's necessarily coming back. It needed to happen for him to kind of have a chance at the NBA. That's it. Yeah,
You got
that's
the
it
last
for
question,
Duke.
my man.
That's it for Duke.
Nick wanted more. He was ready for more.
I literally was looking down. I'm like, I've asked all these questions. Yes, that's the end of Do You Care? On the other side of this break, we're going to be jumping into a little cover 5. We got NHL, NBA, a little baseball news, and also some college basketball. College basketball came back yesterday, Jared. So we're going to talk about the top team in college basketball. So all of that is on the other side of this break. A little cover 5 here on OC Rock Radio.
Team President Magic Johnson, quote, admonished Coach Luke Walton for the team's slow start. The Lakers were 2-5 at that point. Now, they've won a game since, but even that win came in the final seconds after they almost gave away a significant lead. And ESPN's reporting says that Magic's, quote, cutting appraisal elevated awareness among the coaching staff that the pressure to turn things around is intense and that evidence is mounting that Luke's job security depends on it.
34-point margin, the most lopsided defeat suffered by Kentucky in the John Calipari era. 118-84. Unbelievable. They don't make freshmen like they used to. Huh? It was Barrett with 33, Williamson with 28, Reddish with 22. Duke has made everybody in the college basketball world take notice here on night 1 of the season with an unbelievably impressive performance.
Cover 2 podcast coming at you with our final segment and a little cover 5, as Nick had mentioned before we went to break. We're going to jump right into it with 5 minutes of college basketball opening up last night. We had a couple big matchups. We had number 1 Kansas going up against number 10 Michigan State. And then the late matchup was number 2 Kentucky going up against number 4 Duke. Nick, let's jump into the Kansas and Michigan State game first. First, did you get to see some of the game?
I only saw the Duke Kentucky game, so okay. I'll let you lead this one. Yeah.
Kansas Michigan State, really for the majority of this game, Kansas was in control. They were up by double digits for the majority of the game. Kansas has a lot of depth, and Kansas is one of those teams where they're in the conversation with Duke, and Kentucky is always fighting for those top recruits, right? They always get the top 10 recruits, at least 1 or 2 of them every single year. Michigan State, on the other hand, with Tom Izzo, you really have to give this program credit because they don't always get the top recruits. What they do is their formula and the way that they produce their players. First of all, they keep their players, right? They don't have many one-and-done guys. So you see sophomores and some juniors and even seniors on this team. So the experience level, I think, is really a great quality that this team has that you really don't see too much in college basketball today. And I think that experience was able to show up because Michigan State, like I mentioned, was down by double digits, and they came back in this game and did tie it at one point. They ended up losing by 5. I think it's a great matchup to get the season going. You want to get people excited about college basketball, so it's great that you have these top 10 matchups. But really, I don't think you can fault Michigan State for losing this game too much, right? You're going up against a very, very talented and currently number 1 ranked Kansas team. So it was a great way to start off college basketball. But yeah, other than that, Kansas wins. Let's jump to Duke, Kentucky. I think this is the way bigger matchup and one
bigger names.
All about the freshmen.
Well, I mean, Duke coming into the season, we all knew this that they got the top 3 recruits, or at least at one point, the 3 guys were the top 3 recruits in all of college basketball, not just like from California. It was the top 3 recruits. 2 of the biggest ones, R.J. Barrett and Zion Williamson, really came out in this game and played. Zion, probably the most famous one. The dude, you've seen him do the dunks in high school. Dude put on a show last night again. Not with the crazy dunks and stuff, but 28 points, backing people down like he's a center. I don't know how big he is, but
he's bigger than Aaron Judge. He's 6'7", and he weighs 10 more pounds than Aaron Judge.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Just beefs up the argument. But, yeah, this is this Duke team is going to be tough to beat. They're probably one of the favorites right now in college basketball, barring any injury. And, it's going to be fun to watch. I'm definitely going to watch the Duke team. Jerry, I know you're a supporter of Duke as well, so it's got to make you happy that, Duke's good every single year, but this seems like the one year where Duke is probably the top team. And, the Kansas is good, and Michigan State good. That game was close. And Kentucky is good, too. But the score was, 118-84?
And it wasn't even that close.
Yeah, so it's like, I get it's first game of the season, and I'll do the whole college football thing as well. But, it's first game of the season, so I'll cut Kentucky some slack. But this Duke team, very impressive, and it's just going to be, you were saying potentially the 1 through 3 picks in the NBA draft.
Oh, yeah.
Next year.
No, listen.
That's ridiculous.
Listen, R.J. Barrett, Cam Reddish, and Zion Williams. They were I believe that was
what were the stats for all those guys, real quick? We only got a minute left for the segment.
Okay. R.J. Barrett, 33 points. Cam Reddish, 22 points. Zion Williams, 28 points.
That is and that is like perfect, exactly what you want if you're Duke, too.
Yeah, it was the way that they shot the three. Zion Williams opened the game the first couple minutes and shot a three with someone in his face.
Yeah,
so he's not a
three-point shooter either.
No, he's not at all.
Like, that's not. Yeah. So it's like
Duke will not score and shoot as well as they did in this game against Kentucky. But if they get even close to that, they will be close to unbeatable, and you can bank that they will be a 1 or 2 seed.
Yeah, it's going to be fun watching this Duke team, college basketball. I kind of vowed to watch a little bit more college basketball this season because I was very entertained by March Madness last year, and I was like, I really wish I would have knew a lot more of these teams and stuff like that because I did pretty good on my bracket and stuff like that too. Now I'm going to definitely invest myself in college basketball this year, and especially Duke because they're looking like one of those top teams again, maybe a little Kentucky from a couple years ago. All right, so that's it's been about 5 minutes on this segment, so we're going to switch completely different topics. Moving on, not completely different topics, sticking with basketball. The Lakers, good old Lakers, Jared. Luke Walton and Magic Johnson had a meeting, a sketchy meeting, the other day at Lakers headquarters. Jared, educate the listener on what happened during this meeting.
It's very plain and simple. Magic Johnson basically told Luke Walton that you're someone on the hot seat, and that listen, we have given you the pieces right now. They in the offseason they probably wanted to get another superstar to go along with LeBron James, but Magic Johnson basically said, we gave you LeBron James, right? Brandon Ingram is another year further into his career. Lonzo Ball is coming off healthy. We gave you some veterans. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is coming back. Rajon Rondo, right? This team, while they may not be able to contend with Golden State, this team is far better than what they were last year. And the fact that this team is now sitting at 3-5 and not looking very good, I think the message was sent to Luke Walton that you need to come out and fire this team up any way you can. The first game after that talk, the Lakers came out and beat Portland in Portland, where they lost.
Yeah, what was the stat?
I believe they won like 114-110.
Well, no, but it was the first time they won in Portland in like 5 years or something.
No, more than 5 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It was a long time, and the first game of the season, the Lakers lost in Portland as well. So that was good to see. The thing is consistency.
Then what happened the next game though?
They did lose.
Toronto.
Yeah,
they got blown out by Toronto.
A bad lot. They gave up like 36 or something in the first quarter.
I think it was like worse. I think it was like 47-12.
Okay, I was trying to be
I think
nice.
It was down by 36.
Okay, I was trying to be nice.
Yeah, no, this Lakers team. It's like I watched them at the beginning of the season. Obviously, you watch LeBron, but like they're not that fun to watch, right? It's like because there's two different systems going on, and this is what Magic's problem is with Luke Walton. The Lakers, his system is run and gun, a lot like Golden State, sprinting the whole time. And then LeBron's system is slow it down, dribble the ball up, set up a play. And it's like this mix in the middle where like LeBron isn't playing as hard as he should be in the system because he's not used to it. And Luke Walton doesn't really have a system. He's kind of just letting the team play. And I absolutely credit Magic Johnson for this. Because what's our biggest joke about the Cavs, or was before Ty Lue got fired? That LeBron James was the coach, GM, and owner of that team, right? Dan Gilbert never got involved, didn't say anything. I didn't even know who the GM was of the Cavs. I literally don't know who it is. And then Ty Lue was kind of this puppet for LeBron. And what Magic Johnson is saying, that's not happening here. You need to actually coach the team and not let LeBron coach the team because that's actually a legitimate concern. If LeBron takes over the team, then you're not playing with a system, and that system has not been able to beat Golden State the last couple of years. Luke Walton's system, I think, is a system that you can compete with Golden State with down the line. I'm not saying this year. But, man, I credit Magic Johnson because what he's saying is, hey, this is not some dog and pony show here. You have to actually have a basketball strategy and not just rely on LeBron to win you games, because he can't win you games, and LeBron has actually blown more games this season than he's won the Lakers games. So I credit Magic Johnson. I love that he said you need to have a system, and Luke Walton really hasn't done much with the Lakers. Besides, they've increased wins the last couple of years, but it's looking like they're like a 40-win team this season, which is not what they're supposed to be. I thought they'd be a 50-win team, or at least close to that, and it doesn't look like they're doing that right now. So
right.
What are your thoughts on the whole Magic Johnson thing?
Yeah, no, listen, I think this is what Magic Johnson had to do, and he understands that the pressure is now on this team with LeBron James here, okay? You have a superstar in place. It's time to start winning.
Yeah.
Right? And
not losing.
Not losing. It's time to start winning, and maybe not necessarily get into the championship, but getting into the playoffs and going very far.
Oh, if the Lakers don't make the playoffs, Walton's gone, for sure.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And Magic Johnson did say, he said there weren't going to be any major changes barring like a total collapse and them being a losing team. Because I don't think they have draft picks either, so it's not like they can afford to lose again. They kind of have to make the playoffs now with LeBron every single year. If they don't make the playoffs, though, Walton's gone. And I don't think anybody would be surprised. I see Lakers fans on Twitter saying fire everybody, a lot like Cowboys fans.
Oh,
but
boy.
It's like fire, So you don't want that. You don't want fans, especially Lakers fans. They really do appreciate that team in LA. It's them and the Dodgers. Those are the two biggest franchises here in LA. And these fans, they don't like when the team isn't playing good. And they don't like when the team's, blow leads and stuff like this and blow games. So I credit Magic Johnson for this. I love that he did this because I want the Lakers to be good again. And to be honest, the Clippers have been more entertaining this year, which is amazing because of that roster. Best players, Tobias Harris. So it's like, I was watching a Clipper game the other day. I was like, this is a lot more entertaining than watching LeBron dribble the ball up for 18 seconds and figure it out.
Very sad.
It's been 5. It's been 5
Very
minutes.
quickly. The Lakers officially signed Tyson Chandler.
Yep.
Who had a buyout with the Suns, so they get a little more beef.
Absolutely.
And he can pair with JaVale McGee to get another true center on this team. Now let's move on to a little baseball and Bryce Harper, who there's a report out that he turned down a 10-year, $300 million offer from the Nationals. Nick, I definitely want to get your thoughts on this. $300 million. That's a lot of change to be turning down.
That is very interesting. That probably means that takes the Nationals out of this too, because there was some stuff coming out last couple of days where, and this came, and Bryce Harper said that he wouldn't mind coming back to Washington. This was his home. This was the team he grew up with. As far as in the MLB, he grew up in Vegas, so he didn't really have a team. But he said he wouldn't mind signing back. But if they're offering him $30 million a year for 10 years, potentially more in the first couple years, that's probably a sign that he's going to go somewhere else, and that makes this free agency very interesting. This is a headline, and this means that the Cubs, the Yankees, the Phillies, the Dodgers, you now know that he's going to want more, and that he's not going to settle for less than $30 million a year. Dodgers just gave Kershaw, I believe it was like $33 million a year. That's about what makes sense for him. He maybe deserved a little more, but because of his playoff struggles, it kind of makes sense. Harper's asking for more than that. And are the Dodgers willing to do that? Are the Cubs willing to do that? I know the Yankees are willing to do that. It's just if they actually can do that and not, screw over the rest of their roster. But this is very interesting for the MLB. And I think this takes the Nats out of it, like I've said. And if you're those big city teams and you're these teams that want Bryce Harper, now you know what the deal is. And if you're Manny Machado, you're looking and you're like, this is probably good for me too. Because if Harper gets a ton, I'm around his skill set. I should get around this range too. So if Manny Machado and someone offers me $10 million for $30 million a year, or 10 years for $30 million a year, I'm probably saying no too. So it makes the market. This is going to be a very, very interesting spring for baseball for sure, or spring and winter.
Right. No, I think about if you're Bryce Harper, you didn't decline because you don't want to come back to Washington at all. I think you decline because you have to test the market.
Yeah,
you are the face of baseball, right? You are on MLB The Show's. You're the face.
And interesting enough, he's on the show cover with a hoodie on.
Right, he's not wearing a jersey.
He's not repping the Nationals.
So, but I think in the end you have to test the market because you just say, hey, listen, I'm not doing any disrespect, but for myself, I want to be the highest paid. athlete. And I want to exceed everyone's expectations as far as the money goes. So I'm sure the Yankees, I'm sure the Dodgers, I'm sure all the organizations that have the money and the beef to submit a contract will do so. And then that's when Harper can say, okay, everything's on the table. This is what this team's offering. This is what this team's offering. Where are they heading? What direction are they going in? And then if he doesn't like those offers, then he can come back to Washington and say, all right,
I'll come back to you guys. Just give me a little bit more money.
Right. Right. Yeah. So no, for him, from a money standpoint, I think it was smart for him to decline that offer. And we're so early in the offseason as well. Right.
There's so much news in the MLB lately. It's almost like everyone's like, oh my God, the Red Sox are good. We need to make a move.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things, right? And so, real quick, who do you think he ends up with after all this? Because I named kind of like 5 teams right there, but do you have another team in there, or who do you end up thinking? Like, I have no idea, to be honest.
I really don't. I just, the Yankees always pop into my head because they're kind of like the Cowboys. Anytime a major free agent, is out there, like the Cowboys always get linked to someone, and I think the Yankees are kind of in the same boat. They just always have the money to throw at people. So I think the Yankees have to be in the mix. You have Judge and John.
They have a lot of young contracts
already.
Yeah.
So those are 2 outfielders. You're gonna put Bryce Harper in the outfield with them as well. From a name standpoint, that's pretty amazing. Can you do it financially? I'm not so sure. The Dodgers are another team that I mentioned. Financially, I'm sure they can finagle a way to do it. They have a lot of decisions to make, obviously, with certain players on their roster as well in the outfield. But I think those would be the 2 teams just quickly off the top of my head that I think, because more of the money situation, not necessarily looking at it from the baseball aspect, but looking at it from the financial perspective.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, I really don't know. I got to see some chatter coming on about who's signing who and all this stuff before I make a full prediction on where he's going to end up. Is that between those 4 teams? I really don't know. All right, switching to the last topic of Cover 5, and this kind of goes with my Kings fandom here, my Los Angeles Kings fandom. The Los Angeles Kings fired longtime assistant and brief head coach John Stevens after their poor start. They were last place at the time when they fired John Stevens in the entire Western Conference, not even the Pacific Division. And they hire on an interim basis Willie Desjardins, who was the coach for the Vancouver Canucks last couple of years. Didn't have a lot of success there, but they didn't really have a roster for him. He's going to change the culture, and this started out well last night, Tuesday. They kind of whooped on the Ducks, which wasn't something they did the last couple of years. Although the Ducks are having kind of a down year themselves, barely even winning games themselves, the Ducks always were a tough matchup for the Kings because the Kings kind of play a slower style. The Ducks play a very fast style, and so the Kings those games were always close. Last night it was I believe it was 3-0 at one point. They ended up winning 4-1. Kings played fast. Willie Desjardins kind of quickly came in, and I saw this too at their first practice. The guys were skating all over the ice, and normally Kings practices were kind of slower. It was mellow. This was different. And the first he comes in and kind of just says, "This is the way we're doing it, guys, because you guys suck, and we need to change the way we're playing, because I'm not gonna, So I tweeted something out. It was election day yesterday. I'm like, Willie Desjardins for governor, California, because this guy comes in and changes the Kings in one night, right? But nonetheless, I'm excited about I don't know if the Kings will end up making the playoffs because they're just so far behind right now. But they have only played 14 games at this point, so 68 left. So there's a lot of time, and the Kings have changed coaches in the middle of a season and actually won the Stanley Cup before. Okay. So it's not totally foreign that the Kings have done this. Those were a little later in the season when they had better years. This is their last place they need to make a decision. This is kind of Willie Desjardins' tryout for the year. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think this is just an opportunity for this coach to come in and set his mark before it's too late.
Yeah.
Right? You want to give him the best opportunity that he can to come in and put his mark on this team. So, like you mentioned in the past, when this team has made a decision later on in the season, that can almost be more tricky because it's like, okay, we're getting later on in the season, the postseason pushes around, and now you guys are going to make a decision. Now it's like, okay, there's not as much pressure on the coach right now to say we have to win now, because there are so many games left. Yeah. So I think from that perspective, it's an opportunity for him to get to kind of bond with the players and say, okay, guys, this isn't the biggest pressure situation right now. We have time to change. We have time to practice and learn a new style of play. Mm-hmm. And then we can incorporate that and not have to just learn on the fly. So obviously, I don't really follow hockey as much, but just from a coaching perspective, I think as an organization, they said, hey, listen, we want to give this coach the best opportunity to come in and help our team win. And that was by making the change right now as opposed to doing it later on in the season where there's so much more pressure, especially if you're in contention. So right now, even though they haven't played well so far, there is a huge opportunity for them to turn this thing around and get going.
No, exactly. And they actually fired the assistant coach for the Kings, too, so there's a new assistant coach coming in.
A new kind of an overhaul.
He hasn't shown up to the team yet, but he's going to be there, too. They're just building a new system. And I think the Kings' style of play was applicable for when they were winning the Stanley Cup, like 4 or 5 years ago. The NHL has actually changed enough in those years where they need to change the system. That slow system doesn't really work in the NHL anymore. And as we saw the two teams in the Stanley Cup last year, Washington and not Golden State, the Golden Knights, they're very fast hockey teams. And I think the Kings, adding Ilya Kovalchuk and adding all these younger rookies and stuff like that, they needed to change that system, and that big guy system doesn't work, especially when your defenders are small too. But nonetheless, I like it. We'll see how the Kings do. Big win. They actually made this. You made the point of he had time to put in the system. They fired the coaches actually after a win, too, on Saturday night. And then Willie Desjardins was able to get in there Sunday, kind of put in the system for 2 days, and then they were able to play the Ducks yesterday and really show that the system worked, at least for one game. We'll see when they really play some more talented teams how it goes. But I'm definitely excited about this new coach and to see where the Kings go from here and if they can possibly make the playoffs. All right, that's it for Cover 5. We're going to go into our final thoughts here for the day. So, Jared, do you have your final thought?
I do, and this one actually just came onto my phone.
Oh, good.
The NBA, for the second year in a row, is going to have kind of a pick'em style All-Star draft, right? They scrapped the East versus West, and now the top two vote getters, and the one for the East, one for the West, will be essentially the captains, and they get to pick their roster. Last year, it was not televised, and there were many fans and media and even players who came out and said, this should be televised, right? This shouldn't be a secret. Make it entertainment, right? So the NBA just came out and said that this All-Star draft will be televised on TNT. There is not an official date for this yet, but it will be cool. I think the one negative that some players were voicing was the fact that maybe if you're the last player picked, maybe it's a little embarrassing. But it's like, hey, listen, it's like you're an all-star regardless. You shouldn't be embarrassed about that at all, okay? Yeah. So obviously LeBron James and Steph Curry and James Harden are probably going to be the top guys picked, and Anthony Davis, right? But just because you may be the last guy picked, guess what? That doesn't mean you're not an all-star. You get to still carry around that badge and that persona. So I think it's a good thing that the NBA is going to be televising this. And it's just, another opportunity for people to talk about the All-Star game. The one negative I will say, and this is something that I've kind of been not really harping on, but in the back of my mind, is that the All-Star game, in my opinion, needs to be played in a warm weather city where there's kind of like, I don't want to say nightlife, but like there's things to do. Well, this year, it's played in Charlotte. And nothing against Charlotte. I've never been there before. But it's not as sexy and appealing as LA or Miami or even New York for that matter. You know what I mean? It's like players go, and especially for the players that are all-stars. Now, I'm not trying to, give them a sob story or anything, but it's like they don't really get a rest.
You know what they just did, Phil? They just announced that one of the All-Star games is going to be in Cleveland 2 years too.
See, that's ridiculous.
Did you see that?
That is absolutely
ridiculous. The thing is, they're doing renovations to the Quicken Loans arenas.
I could care less if they turn it.
Cleveland sucks. Yeah. Okay, I kind of agree with you in this, and I've never been to Charlotte. I know people from Charlotte, but I don't. I know people from Charlotte.
One potential person who might be listening right now.
Yeah, I know people from Charlotte. It's funny because my final thought is actually on a team from Charlotte as well. But I'll stick to this. You're right. It's not like this glamorous. It's not Miami. It's not New York. It's not Boston. It's not LA. It's not, But Yeah, so it's interesting. Obviously, they were supposed to have the All-Star game a couple of years ago, but they had this issue with transgender bathrooms and stuff like this. It was a good thing they changed it when they did, because it was going to spark just huge controversy, and the NBA was already dealing with stuff at that time. They didn't need to deal with extra stuff. But yeah, you're right. My other fix for this, just to echo on this, is I think they just need to pick the 24 best players. I don't think there should be East and West, because I think there is a divide.
Well, there's not East versus West anymore.
So you're saying they're just picking the best 24?
Yeah, no, it's just the best 24. So like last year, LeBron James and Steph Curry were the two captains. So they both picked their teams, but there was no East-West. LeBron James could have picked Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
Who plays in the East.
No, but this is what I'm saying, though. I'm saying because if fans vote, they should just be voting for the best 24 players in the first place.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I don't even think there should be 12 from the East, 12 from the West, because there's probably 20 players from the West that are better than like 8 players. So I think guys get left out of the All-Star game, and these other sports, Pro Bowl, the NHL one, and baseball do a good job of kind of stacking the rosters. So there's not a lot of times there's not too many people that are snubbed. The NBA has a problem though with parity in the West and East, and now you add LeBron to the West, like he was the guy in the East. I do think they need to change that rule eventually too, because I think you need the most talent, and the NBA wants to see the most talent. They don't necessarily care geographically. I'm on this whole thing with geographics today. Okay, I want there to be conferences that play based on the best teams. I want there to be the best NBA players. I want to see the best of the best. I don't want to see the best from that geographical area versus this unbelievable all-star team from the West. It's just, yeah, that's just what I think. But nonetheless, I'll go on to my final thought. There's a big Thursday night football game this week. There's been some trash, big, what am I looking for? Primetime games. Monday Night Football this week is the Niners and Giants. Which, yeah. Last week we had that, I want to cuss, but I can't. That just trash show of the Raiders and Niners. Okay, I get that, Garoppolo was on this team and the Niners were supposed to be good and Gruden was, but like, whatever happened to flexing, right? Is Sunday Night Football the only one that flexes? Like, I don't know why Monday Night Football goes to a different location every single week for college football. But they can't change the Monday Night Football schedule at all? Like, I don't get it. I get flexing a team to Monday is difficult, but just do it way back, And the teams aren't going to care about getting flexed back a day. It just means more practice, more rest. So, I don't know, man. I think that they first of all, they need to fix these matchups. Some of these matchups have been terrible. But we do get a good matchup this week. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Carolina Panthers. I mentioned a team from Charlotte. That's Carolina Panthers. This game, I think, we were talking about, if you look at the best teams in each conference, the NFC, the top two are probably the Rams and Saints. You can probably agree with me on that, right? The best teams in the AFC are probably the New England Patriots and the Kansas City Chiefs. The third teams in each conference, I think, are the Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC and the Carolina Panthers in the NFC. So this is a battle of who really is still one of those elite teams in the NFL. Carolina does not play good on the road, and they're playing not only on the road in Pittsburgh, but they're playing on a short week, right? And the Steelers have all the momentum in the world right now. They shored up their defense. Their secondary is a little bit better, and they're looking like a good team. They potentially get Le'Veon back. November 13th. We can talk about that in a second too, as we still have about 2.5 minutes to go. This is a big matchup. I urge people to go out and watch this. This is potentially a Super Bowl matchup. I'm going to throw that out there.
Wow.
If these teams improve well enough and they do well, this potentially is a low-key Super Bowl matchup, because I think the Steelers with their talent can get there, and I think Carolina with their talent can potentially get there too. But I don't want to see these teams disappoint. I want this to be a shootout. I want this to be like Rams and Saints, so we can see and add more NFL teams to this legitimate contender list. So I think Carolina and Steelers are right on the cusp right there, and I think if they both can go shoot out this Thursday, I think it's going to be good for them.
I think this definitely has the potential to be a shootout, and because both offenses are highly capable of scoring points, right? You have Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers. They have Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore. You have some weapons there for this team. Devin Funchess, Greg Olsen, right? So this team has weapons. It's really on how is Cam Newton going to play as an actual quarterback, because we know he can run, we know he can use his legs. We know the offensive coordinator, Norv Turner, likes to do gadget plays and trick plays with Christian McCaffrey and get him the ball in space. How is Cam Newton going to play as an actual quarterback? How is he going to throw the ball? He's going to be accurate. We know that the Pittsburgh Steelers defense loves to bring zone blitzes and players from all over the place to try to confuse the quarterback. If Cam Newton can be accurate and beat those blitzes, I think this Panthers team has a legit chance to win. On the other side of the ball for the Steelers, obviously, and we didn't play this game, so we're going to quickly play it right now.
Real quick, yeah.
Nick, did Le'Veon Bell show up for the Steelers this week?
No, he didn't. He's probably showing up next week.
He better.
November 13th is the date, right? That's the date he has to show up.
But there's still a lot of speculation as to whether he will. He tweeted out a couple days ago.
Over, though.
A couple weeks ago, he sent a tweet out saying goodbye Miami. So who knows what that actually means, if he's going to come back or not. But James Conner has been very, very successful in his place. Obviously, you got Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Big Ben is playing well right now. So I think this could be a shootout, but we will see. Probably the last best Thursday night game that I can remember this season was when Minnesota went to play the Rams in LA. And that was a shootout as well. So short weeks, not as much time to prepare, usually means more points.
Absolutely. There you go. You hear the music right there. That means the podcast is coming to an end. Good podcast today, Derek. Football filled, but got a lot of other sports in there in the end. We'll be back next week, potentially talking about Le'Veon's arrival and all the NFL and college football games we talked about today. This has been the Cover 2 podcast on OC Rock. Well, excuse me. I'm Nick Nina.
I'm Jared Smith.
And this has been the Cover 2 podcast on OC Rock Radio.